moves. Okay. Microphone check. 1 2 1 2. Yeah, unpin this. Do something like that. Okay. Let me check here. Just making sure everything's in order. Excellent connection. That's what YouTube is telling me. Not sure if that's true or not, but there we go. Okay, turn this down because it looks like I'm peaking. Okay. Oh, no, still too loud. Maybe, I don't know. All right. You know, who the people are watching, not sure. But I'll just begin talking. Welcome. This is the Black Ponder. I'm Neil Trotter, the host, and this is Black Ponder channel, and this is a philosophy channel. And in case you're new, if you're watching for the first time, this channel, we talk about philosophy, and we usually discuss philosophical texts. But we also have introduced, for a few months now, we've been doing this live stream thing because I'm trying to level up my philosophy game, trying to transition from philosophy hobbyist, philosophy enthusiast, to amateur philosophy. Time to level up. So that's what we're doing. And, you know, so what is philosophy? It's not just reading, right? It's not even just, you know, thinking about really complicated ideas. It's also talking to people, having dialogues with others, particularly people who don't share the same ideas as you, and having a dialogue and learning how to discuss ideas opposing or, you know, explaining ideas that other people might not understand in calm, civil, and welcoming and constructive and productive ways. All right, so it's, you know, we got to do a dialogue or a dialectic. It's a more fancy word of saying it. And that is, you know, that's part of philosophy too. So, you know, I would make videos, and I still do that. I'm about to come out with this new video about this text I read. But I've been doing these live streams so I can have more of a dialogue. I also talk to talking to a lot more people about philosophy in real life, because really trying to up that game. So yeah, today's topic is, what is love? What is love? What is love? Now, if you are watching, or even if you're checking out the recording after the fact, you can always comment below any type of conversation or question or commentary. We're just hanging out. We're just having a fun. We're just chilling. So if we don't have to like stick to the topic all the time. I'm not gonna be like, if you want to veer towards some other, want to go on a tangent. We're just hanging out. We're just feel free to change topics, but I'm pretty good at veering the conversation back to its original topic. So we'll do that. And I'll just go ahead and talk about the topic. What is love? And so, let's see, where do I begin? I guess I was talking. Oh yeah, so we had a discussion before. It was about first we had a live stream about what is God, right? And after a while, that God conversation veered toward the realm of free will, right? Because the existence of God and the existence of free will are two discussions that oftentimes go hand in hand, right? So I was like, that's a big topic. Why don't I just talk a bit about free will? It had that as its own live stream, which I did. That was last live stream. It was free will. And we had, that was fun talking about that. Does it exist? If it does, what is it? How do we define free will? Or what are the various ways to define free will? But the reason why that was brought up, where people were talking about free will with the God live stream, because people, it often comes up when you're talking about God, and you're like, what is God? Well, is God omnipotent? Is God all loving, all benevolent? If that's the case, if God is all powerful and all benevolent, then why is it that evil things occur in our world? Why does evilness exist? What about all the suffering that exists in the world, right? If God is like this all loving, that's a very common question in religion, and and when you look at it philosophically, and one of the common responses to that is like, oh, it's because free will, right? Because God allows beings to have free will, so they can decide whether or not they want to do good or do bad. And when they do bad, it leads to it can lead to suffering, and so that's why suffering takes place. But then the argument then comes like, well, why does God allow that to happen, right? And so that's like its own separate discussion, which I mentioned in several videos. And so we can go toward that conversation, but it kind of begs the question: is what is the nature of love? If that's how you define love, is like, oh, God loves you so much, like God allows you to choose. You have free will, but what if you choose to do horrible things that cause suffering? And then is that a kind of love? Like, why can't God just be like, hey, no, I love people too much. I'm not going to allow hurt to happen. So, I think that kind of we can start focusing on like, okay, so let's talk about what is love then. What is love? And how does that fit into the context of free will? And we don't even have to go to the whole God thing. That could be left out, or we can go to that. But I think like understanding what love is can actually answer or address some of those concerns. Hello, Lionel Daniel. I am okay. So yeah, I'm doing it inside today because outside is hella hot. It's like a sauna out there. And I've already been outside for a while already doing all types of other stuff. So I'm like, I need a break. Fortunately, I'm blessed with the air conditioning system. So let's take a break. So you might be hearing some fans and some AC, the machine humming. Oh well, I need a break. And this time I got some aesthetic books. I'm doing like what many of the booktubers do. I don't have a ring light, so I know my face isn't lit up. And I'm using a webcam. I'm not using a high definition 4K. So I'm not, I'm not pulling out all the stops, but I put out a little bit of the stops with the background. Hello, MA. Let's see. I got this. I just bought this book. Okay. Let's see. Philosophical Questions. That is a good book to read. Oh, is there a question? Let me see. I got this. I just bought this book, Philosophical Questions. Oh, you bought a book called Philosophical Questions? I never heard of that book before. Is that a good book to read? I don't know. I never heard of that one. I am a true savant. I guess. Isn't it like a savant? I guess, a savant, and the way you're saying it's a very smart person. But is it a savant like somebody who is kind of like an absent-minded professor, or like even more so, where they're very intelligent in one area, but like not so intelligent in other areas? But I know you're just saying, you're really smart. Well, thanks. Going to love this topic. Hello, Vibe. Hello, Fun. Do you think someone can go through life without ever experiencing love? Yeah, I'm trying to think about that. Yeah, I mean that. I don't think that's outside the realm of possibility. That would be very bad. That'd be a very bad life, huh? Nobody ever experienced. It's probably happened. Yeah, I would think that would be very hard, though. If event, but I would think like that would also be probably a very short life, because inevitably you're probably gonna meet somebody that's gonna have some sort of compassion for you if you live long enough. But maybe if you're like, you are, those really bad situations, neglected child that dies young, it could happen. It could happen. But I would say like that's probably rare, I would think. But it could happen. Love is merely an attachment to something or someone. Every definition boils down to this by degrees. As MA says, so MA is defining love as merely an attraction by something or someone. So I think it's more than that, but we can get into it. And then Fun says, yeah, but what is that attachment? How does it come to form? Okay. Humans are communal by nature, so we attach ourselves to others out of necessity. Mm-hmm. Unlike other species, like bears, for instance. Bears can't stand each other. There's lots of solitary creatures. Or people, they're animals that prefer to just be solitary. It's like my wife. She has a betta fish. Bettas, very popular kinds of fish that people own in their home, with their fish tank or their aquarium. Bettas hate being with other bettas. Like they'll immediately start fighting each other if they're with another betta. They like being alone. Now they will tolerate other species of fish. They'll tolerate them, but they like being alone. But they also like interacting with the person. Like they like interacting. They're kind of smart because they will interact with the human if the human does taps on the fish tank and then in a nice way, or you could even teach bettas to do tricks and stuff. It's kind of crazy. So they'll form an attachment with a human, interestingly enough, but they cannot stand. Betta fish can't stand being with each other. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, humans we're social creatures. Even introverts and people are like, I hate people. But then you see a lot of introverts on, social media, right? Connecting in that way. So yeah, there's that. Then MA, attachment, not attraction. Oh, attraction can be love too, but all love is first an attachment. You wouldn't say you're attracted to your dog, but you would say you're attached to your dog. Attached. It kind of more, it sounds almost um, like a forceful thing. Like, you like a handcuffed. I'm gonna attach it to you. That's what that sounds like to me. I'm attached to my dog. I'm via leash, right? I don't know if that's how I would put it. So let me introduce you to a concept of which I've talked about a little bit. It's called mutual aid. Mutual aid is a very popular concept in social activism. It means like, a lot of activists will say solidarity, not charity, right? Because, there's charity, which are like non-profit organizations, or, there are organizations that like Feed America. They help people, they give people resources, but they kind of don't really do anything to address the core issue of like, why are people hungry? It's like a band-aid solution. Now, it's great to feed people who are hungry. That's awesome, right? But the problem, but then you're in a situation where it's like, I get, you just accept like, okay, we're in a world where there's just gonna be hungry people. Right? This is just hungry people, and so we're gonna be the people that are always gonna feed hungry people, right? Or take your pick with other charity organizations. Homelessness is like, okay, we're gonna make sure homeless people are out of the street, but but there's this kind of not progression of like, there's always homeless people, so we're gonna be there for them when they need it, as opposed to mutual aid takes like a step forward up, where it's like, well, let's like address the issue of homelessness. Like, why is it that people are hungry? Why do people who can't afford food? Like, let's address that. So not only are you focused on feeding people, you're focusing on, well, let's live in a world where we don't have to do this anymore, where everybody can feed each other, right? And so you start doing, in your organization, you start doing things that address that issue of like, I'm not only gonna feed this hungry person, I'm going to also do things that are going to make it so like I don't have to continually do this anymore, right? And then it becomes this mutual situation, because then it's not only you're helping the person that's hungry, you're also helping yourself, right? Because you're helping out your environment, right? Because when you live in a community or in an area where there's no longer hungry people, like, where people can always have access to food, that is an environment that's helpful for everybody, right? And so there's this kind of this circle, or this cyclical, or if you want to use the philosophical and dialectical, this dialectic that goes on in terms of your compassion or your kindness. But that's, I would define, now we're getting to what love is. I think love is a kind of mutual situation where you're being kind and compassionate to somebody, and by doing that, you are also being kind and compassionate to yourself, right? Your compassion for other people enables you to be compassionate toward yourself, or like you are able to receive more compassion because you give compassion, right? That's what love is, right? It isn't like a one-way street. It goes both ways, right? See, this is what love is in how I define it. Let's see what other people says. Other people are saying hello. Kang Thumper. Finally caught this live. Shout out to those who like to learn. Peace. Hey, what's up? Okay, peace. Deuces. What's up, Kang? I think our connection with other people speaks to our sense of global community. This is MA. We have a sense that we're connected, responsible for, or attached to each other. Love isn't a one-way street. I disagree. Love is. Oh, so you think love is a one-way street? See, I disagree with that. So, you know, let's explore that a little more. So there are two words, right? There's selfishness, and then there's selflessness, right? Selfishness is, of course, obviously, is you're only obsessed with yourself, right? That's not love. But then there's this other term, selflessness, where you don't care about yourself, you only care about others, right? That's not love either, in my opinion. That's selflessness, but that's not love, because to love other people, you have to also love yourself, right? But I remember I was having a conversation with somebody about like, and this person thought like, oh, their opinion is, oh, love is inherently selfish. It's because you're only really loving somebody because it helps you out in the end, which is not an unpopular idea. Like for example, you have a mother who has a child, right, or a parent that has a child. And they help, you know, they bring their child into the world, and they help their child do good. Some of my family members are walking. See, my family members are walking, and so you might hear some noises and such. You bring your child into the world. Hello.
Hey, sweetie.
Okay.
And I want to drink.
Okay. And let's see. Yeah, and so the idea is like, oh well, the only reason why you're helping your child out is because, first of all, is this evolutionary thing that's going on where it's like you're compelled to help out your child because, you know, you have this genetic evolutionary bond that's going on, but also like there's all these emotions of like some people have children because they're extensions of themselves. Or, you know, there's this other idea of, you know, you help out your child so that when you get old, your child can help you out, right? It's like there's all these kinds of ideas like that, right? But is that really love? And so she would say, like, you know, that's really, even like the most sincerest kind of love, you're really just doing it just to benefit yourself, right? And, but that's not, you know, I disagree with that. And I think there's pretty obvious reasons why that's not the case, right? You know, if a child, you know, if you help bring somebody up in the world in a very constructive way, they can make you a better person, right? And it's a mutual situation. I know my daughter has really gave me a lot of enlightenment in my life, and you know, by sharing my compassion with her, she has shared her compassion with me. And, you know, we've both enriched each other's lives. You know, and I mean, and why do I do this? Because I just, why is it that I'm doing this? Why do I show compassion for her? Because I enjoy that mutual enrichment that we both get. Right. It's very that's why I think that's what love is, right? It's this kind of mutual like compassion that both recipients get. The recipient becomes the receiver, or no, the recipient becomes the receiver. Yeah, that's it. The person that gives is also the person that takes, right? And that's what happens when, yeah, that's how I see love. But let me see some of the other comments here. What did I miss? Fun says a sense of connection for everybody. And I mean, yeah, but I'll let others join in. Okay. And then Kang. Then there's a song. It's the thin line between love and hate. Yeah, that we could talk about that too. Can a child love? Sure, a child can love. I think by default we all love each other. Yeah, there's that other idea of like, oh, a child, it's just it's kind of like a virus, right? It's just like it's just mooching off of you, and a child doesn't, is too young to understand concepts of love, and they're just trying to like, they're just existing just so that they can get the benefit for themselves, and they're not really giving you, the parent, any benefit. That's not true. I don't think that's true. I think a baby can love for sure, and the baby also enriches the parent's life too. And you hear parents all the time talk about like, I didn't know what my life was meant or before, and then I had my child, and then I found direction in life, or I found this calling that I received, or like this, now I really truly understand the purpose of what it means really to love somebody, or something like that. You hear these kinds of things from parents when they love their children. And a child can give that, and I think that's love. It really doesn't even have to be like that. They don't have to be that aware that it's happening, right? It's more of an action than an awareness. Yeah. Amazed. Yes, if love is merely attachment, then children can love. Right, but what I'm saying is, it's not just the child isn't simply attached, right? Because the child is also helping the parent, right? In a sense. I mean, it just depends on how open or receptive the parent is to receive the love that the child is giving. Of course, the immediate ideas that come to mind is like, well, what can a child give to a parent? They can't contribute financially. They can't help with the chores, right? They literally have diapers, they poop, but they're very compassionate, right? It's kind of like having an animal as a having pets or something like that, which I'm some people will say like, oh, you can't compare those two things, but I like having a dog as a companion, that's a very loving relationship too, right? And so can a dog love a human if they are like the human is a guardian to the dog? Sure. Sure you can. And the dog provides, or a cat or whatever, a rat, even fish, like a betta. We talked about the bettas before. They can provide a sense of love, I think so, because it's this mutual thing that's going on, and it's like you don't have to be. So that's another thing about love. I don't think you have to be like conscious of the loving situation. It's an action. Is a doing, like it's a perform. It isn't like I'm thinking that this is happening, therefore it's happening. It's like it's a doing, right? It's not theoretical. Is what I'm saying. It's pure action. Okay, and then, but there are gradients in different kinds of love. Yeah, that's true, probably. Yeah, that's probably true. I hate that media portrays love as sweet and fluffy. Yeah, love is complex. It can be sweet and fluffy though. But that, like what Ma is saying, there's gradients in different kinds of love. So there is a sweet and fluffy love, but there's also like all different kinds of. So yeah, there's definitely love can be expressed in many different ways for sure. Uh huh. Kang has said as a joke, it's an inverse square law, right? That because I because I was saying it's not theoretical, right? So yeah, no, that would be another thing I would pose is like love is not you can be unconscious that you're providing love to somebody, but you're still providing love if it's this mutual like benefit to the one for you giving it and then you receiving something else. That's love. And then Jeremy Borno says, love to me is caring about someone and seeing it as a human being with struggles and triumphs. Is caring about someone, okay, seeing it as a human being with struggles and triumphs. That is, but what about like animals that aren't human beings, right? Are you does that? I mean, I'm guessing you're basically saying like, well, not just human being, just any being, seeing a being as a person or as a as a subject, right? Is that what you mean? Because you're saying love is to me is about caring about someone. So I caring about someone and seeing the subjectivity of that person. Yeah, that makes sense. But then I would go further and say like, and allowing that subjectivity to influence you in positive ways, right? To love someone, you have to accept them as imperfect and flawed. Yeah, that's definitely true, right? So a lot of times when people say they love someone, is like, well, do you really love someone, or do you love the idea of that somebody, or like, do you have a concept of somebody, and and you're trying to push that person into this concept that you created. Kind of like I knew parents that they are trying to condition their children to be little miniature versions of themselves. Because a lot of parents do that. They're like, oh, this is a little mini me, so I'm gonna make a little mini version. But of course, like the child is their own person, right? And they're more than likely going to do things that are outside what the parent is, right? Because they're their own person, right? And but oftentimes there's confusion of like, well, I'm trying to like raise this kid right and make sure this kid is doing the right things. Like, really, what you're doing is you're conditioning the child to conform to your idea of what is right and what's wrong, and like your idea of what is good, or you're just trying to make the kid you, which is that's not love. Like that's not love. Yeah. But also love is seeing, because some flaws and imperfections need to be worked on. Like, there's many things about me that when I was younger and still to this day, where okay, I definitely need to improve on this, right? And a lot of times, like your loved ones can be the ones that are like that'll point those things out to you and be like, yeah, I think it, and they can help you become better as a person. Not so much like conform to a certain idea, like allow you to be the best version of you, I guess. Use that corny phrase, but it's true. Yeah, allow you to be the best version of you, whatever that may be. And then MA says a dog can show love. Love is fealty. Yeah. So if a dog can love, certainly, like a little child can. So I agree with your friend here, but here we go. The Greeks thought of love as having different forms. Yes, uh, that's important. So a lot of people fall into those. I think what is it? Oh, I forgot that dialogue. That Plato's dialogue. Oh my god, I can't believe I forgot it. It starts with a P, I think. It's not the proslogia. That's Kant's thing. The Symposium. I think it's called. I think it's a Symposium by Plato. I think that's what it is. So where he breaks down, the different kinds of love, yeah, and then you list them there. Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. There are definitely different kinds of love. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that I believe is. Now I gotta look it up. I will definitely make a video on that. That a dialogue, Plato Symposium, right? Yeah, there is some cost. I think that's the dialogue where he breaks down these different kinds of love, which a lot of people fall back to in terms of like, yeah, this is what love is. It's broken down in Plato's dialogue, and he definitely like Plato definitely. Has a lot of insight on the variations of love. I still think though it's a bit despite how it's great how there's all these different versions of love. That's not just the romantic love or the sexual love. But I still think that Plato's breakdown of like these categories of love, they're still like boxes, right? And there are also various versions of love that don't fit inside those boxes, or like they kind of fit in between. And I think we need to allow expressions of love to exist like in various forms that are not even in those categories as well. Yeah, basically what I'm saying is I think sometimes I often talk to people who are really into Plato and they really are like, okay, what kind of love is this? It's kind of like when people talk about love languages. And it's like, oh, my love language is, I like receiving gifts. Or like, I like, being touched. That's my love language. But then there's some people who express love that aren't of any of those, right? And so then you start running. And then some people will be like, oh, well, we got to find which one of your love language. It is like not any of them. And so you start running into these problems of, well, maybe their love language is outside that definition. Same thing with one of those personality tests, the INFG. I think I'm like an INTF, or I don't remember. But it's like, I'm sure that's very useful. But you definitely need room for other kinds of personality types that might not fit in those boxes. Now, I think the people who develop those, they say like, oh, there are, of course there exists like in betweens and such and such. So I don't know. I'm sure the developers of those psychological theories feel like, they're just kind of guidelines. But a lot of people will not treat them as guidelines. They'll just treat them as like the unbreakable laws of like, well, if you're not one of these types of persons, then I don't know what to tell you. I guess you're just not. You need to like understand what it's like. Well, so you gotta be careful not to be trapped into these definitions. But they're useful to like begin a discussion with for sure. The story of Vinland Saga. Yep, Vinland Saga. Very popular manga and anime. A lot of my friends are really hardcore into that. Made the distinction the opposite of love is discrimination. So true love must be universal. That's not the only meaning, but it provides a strong pathway to understanding it. The opposite of love is discrimination. That's Vinland Saga philosophy.
Well, yeah, it's true. Like, you definitely, if you're discriminating, you're definitely not loving. That's for sure. So, okay. And that is Mugiwara Bo. Is that Japanese? Mugiwara Boshi. Mugiwara Boshi. 37. That's cool. Opposite of love is indifference. Complete lack of attachment. Yeah. Okay. So MA, you're really into the attachment definition. So can you love somebody that you're not attached to? I think you can. I think you could totally love someone that's you're not attached to, meaning like you don't have a lasting relationship with, I guess I would say. Yeah, you can love somebody without attachment. You don't think so? Or am I not thinking about am I defining attachment wrong for you? Yeah. I think so. Let's see. Jeremy Borno. Love and respect are equally necessary in building a relationship. I'm trying to think. I would say like love is part of respect. I mean, respect is part of. Let me flip that. Respect is part of love, right? Like respect is one of the aspects of love. Meaning, like you cannot love somebody if you don't respect that person. I would say. Like you can't love somebody you don't respect, and that includes yourself, right? You gotta respect yourself, right? To love yourself. Yeah. Let's see here. How do we separate instinct from love, or can they be both? Yeah, sure. Are you saying instinct like just the natural inclination to help somebody? Yeah, they could be both. Yeah, sure. Why not? Like, if you're having a natural urge to like show compassion to somebody, and and then you become better for it. Yeah, they could be both. Let's see. Love is natural, whereas respect is artificial, in my view. I don't understand people who respect as superior to love. That's backwards. Love is natural, whereas respect is artificial. I don't know. I think is respect artificial? Let me bring this down a little bit. I know I'm not going to show all my books, but let's get relaxed a little bit. Oh, and then let me point the microphone directly at me. Okay, cool. In your point of view, respect. Let's see, I'm trying to think of, have I naturally respected somebody? Yes, I have. When somebody shows compassion and kindness to me, I start developing, and not just me. Sometimes I see somebody being compassionate to others and kind to others. I'm like, that builds my level of respect for that person. Yeah, and that's not like artificial. That's just my natural inclination. Like, oh, okay, that person's pretty cool. I like that person. Yeah, I can jive with that person. I got a lot of respect for that person, because that person really does give a damn. They actually care about what they're doing, and they're willing to help each. Yeah, no, I don't. I think respect can be quite natural. And then to respect that superior. I've never heard of that before. Maybe that's like a military thing. I could see that. Because, the military is all about respecting authority. You know, authority might not show compassion for you, but you sure hell well better respect authority. Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, authoritarian type in authoritarianism. Yeah, that is that kind of like respect before and above love. Not my cup of tea. Okay, so love can make a man a better person, but can love make a dog a better? Yep, sure can. Let's think about like rescue animals. You know, and animals, you know, that have been like my dog, I believe, who came from an abusive home, and you know he was messed up. You know, it was so you know as my wife had the dog for quite a long time before I got into the dog's life, a year or so. And you know, through that, and my wife showed a lot of love that he was not first getting in his first home, and the dog became better for it. So what was that? Can love make a dog better, a better dog? Yep. And then the dog shows love and compassion for us, and you know becomes better. You know, he lives a better quality of life. You know, he's able to express love in more diverse and in more ways, basically. Yeah, he does become better. I think so. Yeah. And then Jeremy Borno saying, Neil, what do you think of modern dating in the context of today's topic? I don't even know how people date anymore. I know, like, what do you mean, like, you mean, like, what do you call it? What's that app that, oh my God, Tinder. Tinder. Are you talking about, like, that kind of dating where it's, like, people date on online apps instead of, like, getting to know? I mean, you know, it's all the same. I mean, I guess it's different. In some ways, it's actually kind of better because, I mean, it just depends. Because, you know, when you're young and you don't have much responsibilities, you don't have bills to pay, you're in college or whatever, you know, you're going to school. So, and also you meet people a lot more in contexts where you can be more forward about romantic relationships. So it's easier because some people be like, well, you know, dating has killed love. But it's like, well, you know, when you're an adult, you're older, you don't have as many opportunities to like meet people because you're so busy working a job, and oftentimes in their job you know it's difficult to like form romantic relationships because you know that a lot of times that's just inappropriate because you're working, or it's like you're too busy working, as opposed to like when you're in school you could like send notes to each other. I mean, you can do that at a job, but it's like it's harder, and then you know work kind of wears you out. So I don't know. I think modern dating is just I don't know, because now I'm thinking like, well, you know what, before apps, well, I mean that was a whole other thing, right? When back in like the 50s, yeah, that was a whole other context. So I guess I would ask, what do you mean when you say modern dating? Or you mean like dating on dating apps, or are you saying like fast-paced dating, or like, you know, speed dating? Like, what do you mean? You were speaking of Myers-Briggs, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. I literally think I'm an INTJ. Well, I don't remember. I don't remember. But I was basically like, I think they called it an ambivert. I was like a mix between an introvert and an extrovert. It's funny how you have to like redefine everything when people don't fit into these boxes. It's like, oh, okay, so you have a little bit of introvert and you have a little extrovert in it too. So I guess we'll make a new definition and we'll do this. And it's like, you know, but you know, language is very useful. I'm not saying I actually do like definitions. It makes it easier to talk about things. But I do think it's also important to not fall into like these traps of like, oh, they're only people only fall into these categories. And it's like, well, we gotta be careful about that. They're tools, they're useful tools, but they're not the end all be all. I would say. Finding a love language difficult. Yeah, same. You know, I want to almost say like it's, you know, in my opinion, which I know I'll lose a lot of people by saying this, but a lot of that, like, it's almost like astrology, right? I know like a lot of this stuff has been like confirmed via science, and they've done a lot of like scientific research that like backs up a lot of this stuff, which is true, you know. So they're not as bad as astrology, but I think there's a lot of ill-informed people that like kind of ignore the science behind a lot of that stuff, and they kind of treat it as astrological signs to the point where it's like, well, I don't date like INFJ people, like I just don't date those kinds of people. Like, come on. It's like, get to know the person or whatever, like, oh, you know, that person has a different love language than me, so this is gonna be hard. And like, I don't know about all that. And MA says people fall into the trap of thinking of love first as eros, love, or romantic love, or filial love. Probably butchering those pronunciations. Oh well. But at the base of it all, it's just attachment, a sense of connection with something else. But it's more than that. I think it's more than just attachment. It's also a kind of mutual. You know, it's a constructionism, to use some big words. It's like you're becoming better. The person that you fall in love with enables you to become a better person. So it's kind of like, it's almost like a attachment. It's kind of like you're able to disattach from the person that you were, and you know, and build yourself and become better. And it kind of, yeah, to me, it's almost like you're able to like disattach from your old self and like discover new ways of being, or rediscovering yourself. I think so that's what love is to me. It's like when you love is like when you find somebody who enables you to rediscover new ways, new aspects of yourself that help make you better. Right? But in a way that's like not outside your true self. It's kind of like you're able to discover further your true self through the compassion that this person gives to you, you know. And so there's that mutual. So you know, it's more than just attachment, I would say. Yeah, because a lot of times, like sometimes when you love somebody, you kind of have to just let them go in a sense. When you're like, okay, now it's, you know, you have to kind of, you know, I'm going to enable you to do these things because I know you can do it. I believe in you. And it's not only just, you know, and that's like not shallow, you know, because sometimes some people will say, I believe in you, you can do it, but they just say that to make you feel better. But but somebody who kind of knows you on like an intimate level, and they're like, you know, I really do know you can do this. Like, you might not think you can do this, but I'm fairly confident you can actually do this because I know who you are, you know, because I've seen that side of you. And so you're able to like push the person forward and like kind of even let them go and be like, you know, you can do this. Go ahead, do it. It's just hard to explain, but yeah. To me, like when you say attachment, it kind of like, I mean, you're definitely like attached to the person, or, well, you know, I don't know, I don't like that word, because it's kind of like, it sounds to me like you're bound to somebody, or like you're leashed to somebody, or like you're like you're kind of affixed to somebody, and I don't see that as, that's not what love is to me. It's kind of like the opposite of that. But I don't know, I just kind of like droning off here. For the next topic, can you talk about peace and reclusion? I think it's introspective. Oh, let me show you this book that goes right into that. I'll be right back. Because I think I remember where I put the book. It's this book right here. My wife got me this book. I see, that's what I'm talking about. Enable. This is like one of my favorite books of all time by Olivia Lang. And she wrote this book. It's called The Lonely City. Adventures in the Art of Being Alone. And it's about like how you can be lonely, but you're not alone. Like it talks about how, you can live in like the big cities and these big metropolitan areas and be surrounded by people and still feel alone. And so in that sense, like your sense of peace is gone, and you develop this reclusiveness, right? Where you're a recluse, but you're in like, New York City or something. Or like, Nashville, Tennessee, like these big cities, San Francisco. And it's reviews. It talks about a lot of popular people like Andy Warhol. He was a very lonely man, even though he had people surrounding him. There's several people like this famous photographer called Vivian Mayer. Many people. That was the cool part about it, because it focused. This author did a lot of research on famous people who lived in big cities, but they were still like very lonely people. Right. So I don't know. I read this book and I was like, I don't really have enough to do a video about this. But maybe I could do a live stream about it. I don't know. I have to look it over again. But yeah, I like that book. But I think the peace and reclusion, yeah, that book definitely goes into that. And then you say, I mean modern dating in terms of high value men and women and the red pill content. I'm not even familiar with that when because people say that a lot, like red pill. I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm familiar with the saying, let me give you my red pill take, which is like, when your eyes are open, like when when Morpheus offered the pill and then Neo woke up and discover what the Matrix really was. Like I understand that, like red pill take, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna show you, how far the rabbit hole really goes down. But some people say that red pill stuff in all types of other contexts that I don't know. So unfortunately, you'll have to even explain that. What do you mean by red pill content? Well, and also high value men. I don't even know what you mean. Do you mean like Elon Musk type of men? Like men who are like rich and wealthy, or like, men who have like a fast car and like a condominium or something? I don't, sorry. That's my bad, but yeah, you'll have to even explain I don't know what high value men is. And I don't know. And women. What do you mean by a high value? Red pill content? What? I don't know. And the vibe says, if a child love and an adult love, I think the highest form of love will be a person. Who is Carl Jung said, no tree, it can grow unless its roots reach down to hell. That Jung, man. I got him, We will eventually feature Jung on the channel, but that won't be for... I was looking at some books by him. But that's probably not going to be for a while. But yeah. So you know what's interesting about trees, that this new science is fairly old now, but you know there's still a lot of development. So trees, you know, if you go to a forest or even like a park, it turns out like trees, they develop networks with each other through their roots. So like, you know, for example, if a tree in a forest, if it gets like sick or ill, like the other trees around it will divert nutrients to the tree that's sick. Or like if a tree needs like sunshine or something like that, the other trees will like divert their their branches to allow the tree that needs sunlight to grow or something. There's like these vast networks, and you know, a lot of scientists have been like examining the ground underneath where the roots are, and they discover like all these like exchanges of chemicals that are happening. So it's like these trees have these cities. It's like these networks. It's basically like us humans, right? But trees just do it differently. Is that fascinating? Because then it just opens the door about like, you know, the trees. There's a kind of sentience there, is there not? You know, it might not be the same as human sentience, but does that mean it's any less valuable? No, just because it's different. Of course, it's a different kind of sentience. Maybe it's more of a collective and less individual kind of sentience, but it's still like an awareness of what's going on and like a communication between various like living organisms, and it's very complex, right? So even in that sense, I mean, is there some sort of love exchange going on there? I believe there's like a lot more research that needs to be done, and it's happening. Problem is, you know, scientific research depends on, you know, financial, you know, funding, right? And you know, who wants to fund that? You know, because we're just chopping down trees to make commodities like paper and like all types of other goods, or they're just chopping down trees to make room for like real estate and stuff. So you know, is there a motivation to learn into that? Because a lot of things we don't know, not because we don't know them because we're not smart enough. It's just we don't prioritize learning about these things, right? So yeah, it's just a side note. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's awesome. Keep at it. Keep it that way. Will do. MA. I'm trying to define love in a way that encompasses all forms of love. Well, maybe that's not necessary. Maybe we could like have different definitions of love that don't encompass all the definitions, which is fine. Yeah, it's kind of like in physics, where they're trying to find a grand theory of everything, a theory that encompasses the laws of electromagnetism and you know, thermodynamics and gravity, because they quantum mechanics and the force of gravity, right? Which they still have physics, you know, theoretical physicists are still trying to merge the two. Now, you know, and now it's like coming to a point where it's like, well, maybe there's just gonna be multiple theories that explain different, and we don't have to have a unifying grand theory. Maybe reality doesn't work like that. Maybe it's just too complicated, or too complicated for human beings. So it's cool. I'm all about like, let's just accept complexity. It's fine. And then Jeremy Borno, love can be considered labor because you actively do things to help and care for people. Yeah, but it's a labor of love. It's kind of like a hobby, but like in a more like in a deeper sense. Like, you know, like what this YouTube channel right here, the Black Ponder, which takes a lot of work, but I love it. Like I love working at this because, you know, it's fun. It's fun to do. Labor doesn't necessarily have to be bad. It's just labor that is, if you're working a dead end job or something like that, or like, you're working a job that you don't care about at all. That's what it becomes, kind of bad. Or like, not fulfilling. And then I love my PS4, my PlayStation 4, but having intercourse with it has never crossed my mind till now. Yeah, so there's like different kinds of love. There's, sexual love is one kind of love, but that's not the only love. Sometimes you can love objects, because I love my PlayStation 5. Be right back. Let me show you something else. We're gonna go on a side tangent here. I bought a PlayStation 5 for this game, Final Fantasy 16. I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan. A Japanese role-playing video game series, one of the most popular gaming series in video. If you're like a gamer or something like that, I played as a little kid. I played the very first one. And later iterations like Final Fantasy 12, 13, 14, 15, even 11, which was the online one, it kind of started taking a dip. And I'm like, man, Final Fantasy ain't as good as it used to be. But damn, this game is the shit. Final Fantasy it's brought this game to its former glory. And I don't think everybody agrees, because the battle system is a bit... it's a real time. It's not like a turn based. It's not like chess where you take turns. It's like, it's like real time. So a lot of the old school Final Fantasy fans, it's like, yeah, I'm checking out. I'm not into this new way of battling. But I'm like, damn, they finally brought it back, baby. This is just as fun as the Final Fantasy back in the day. Back in the Super Nintendo days when I loved Final Fantasy. Because... yeah, I have high praise for this game. So, I love like you say, you love your PlayStation 4. I love my PlayStation 5. Only because of this game, right? This game is the shit. Great game. I love that. Storyline's awesome. Battle's cool. Anyway, so, case in point. There's all different kinds of love. So, what kind of love does that fall into? Did Plato define that? Maybe he did. He probably did. I haven't read the Symposium in like a long ass time. I need to reread that, because I'm sure he defines that kind of love too. But I know what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying. Like, you can love objects, that but you don't want to have intercourse with. But you do love the object. Like, I know exactly because I have that type of feeling too. So love improves a person, or does it make that person? Maybe I'm talking over my head. I think it can improve the person. I don't know if it can make the person, but I think there's a kind of like improvement that happens with love. That's why I think everybody needs love. You gotta, because that's how in my opinion, that's like how a person develops and grows, through love, right? It's not like you go to the gym and you work out, you lift 50 pounds, then it's like, good, now I can do 60 pounds. Oh shit, now I can do 70 pounds. Like, I'm improving myself. I mean, are you really? Like, you can lift heavier things, but there's more. But the reward comes from a kind of like relationship that you develop between maybe weightlifters that you are with, or maybe it's just yourself. Maybe it's just like, I'm setting a goal for myself, and I want to like achieve this goal because it's gonna give me a sense of like achievement, that's fine, and that's a kind of like, now you're loving yourself. and whether that's lifting weights or whatever it could be. Um, but yeah, I think that the love happens. Love enables you to improve yourself. Let's see. Jeremy Borna, the book is interesting as heck. Yeah, it's one of my favorites. I read it a while back. Red pill just tastes just like the blue pill. All right, let's see here. Anything? So when it comes to love, a quote from Carl Jung: "Not everybody can love deeply." I don't think so. I think everybody can love deeply. I just think we don't provide the act. We don't like enable people to love deeply for many reasons. We don't. Our society doesn't allow lots of people to love deeply because we live in a society where violence is king, and of course violence completely like that's kind of the opposite of love. Right? Violence. Right. Yeah, so when you got a society that's so obsessed with violence as the problem solver of everything, then yeah, it's hard to, your tools to love kind of get diminished. So I do think everybody can love deeply. It's just we gotta provide people the tools to do so. Let's see. What do you think of the word tough love? I think, in my opinion, it's misused by impatient parents. You got the phrase tough love. Yeah, sometimes you just gotta do tough love, which is like, yeah, that reminds me of I was just randomly on Twitter, and I think it was some NBA star was, I think the kid wanted to, his son wanted to become an NBA star. And so he's like, all right, let's go to the gym and let's work out. And then, they started pushing the kid in the gym, and the kid started crying because he was getting pushed hard. And the parent was like, he recorded it to himself and the kid was crying. It's some NBA player. Maybe you saw it. I don't know. I'm not really into sports like that. But the kid was crying, and he was like, the parent was like, no, you still got to keep going. You got to push yourself. You got to get through it. And, it was like tough love. But then there was this whole, I was looking at the thread, it was like all these people with these various opinions, like, yeah, that's horrible. You're pushing the kid too much. He's crying. You should stop. But then there was other people who was like, yeah, that's what it takes, man. Greatness requires, you got to push through your limits. You got to find your new, sometimes you got to push through the pain, It's like, it's this back and forth. Yeah, tough love, I think for the most part, is like not, it's not like useful. It's kind of harmful, like in that sense. So in that sense, like the NBA player who was a star, he could have been like, okay, we could just stop. But then later say like, look, like, this is what it takes to be an NBA star. Like, if you don't want to do this, then you ain't going to be an NBA star, right? But, they then allow the kid to be like, it's your choice, But, so that's where I would say, because some people will say that's too harsh, right? And so, to me, that's like, okay, tough love in that aspect, but not like, if the kid's like saying, just, can we stop? You should just be like, all right, stop. We can stop. But I do think, like, because some of the parents are like, well, you just tell the kid you can be whatever you want to be. You can still be an NBA star even if you stop. Like, no, you got to be honest with the kid and say, like, look, when I was a kid, this is what I did, and I pushed through it, and that's why I'm here where I am today. Now, if you don't want to do this, that I fully accept. Like, we don't have to like go through this brutal workout. That's fine. But you're probably not going to make the NBA like doing. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation, right? So to me, like, that's more like tough love to me is there because a lot of people don't even want to do that. They just want to be like, you know, what you could be an NBA star. Yeah, it doesn't matter who you are, what you do. You can be an NBA star. Like, no, that's not useful either. But I am about like you don't need to like push people like if they like are saying they want to quit or they want to stop or if they're hurting themselves, it's like, okay, it's time for you to stop. And so and then if and that's for like any situation, I would say, like, if somebody's like, we need to do this, and it's like, well, no, I don't feel comfortable doing this, it's like, okay, let's stop, to the point. And then it's like, because a lot of times what'll happen is it's interesting, right? It's interesting because to achieve certain things, sometimes you gotta do things you don't want to do, right? Or to achieve certain things, you gotta do things that are very difficult, right? So you just have to come to this realization: is like, how bad do you want it? And I guess the thing is, you shouldn't feel bad because we live in a society where we're encouraged to push people to like these limits to achieve these things, and it's like, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do. It's kind of like my YouTube channel, right? Or it's like, I know I'm not gonna reach 100,000 subscribers because I'm not gonna buy a very expensive camera that has like 4K. I'm not gonna like. I don't give a damn about the algorithm, right? I'm not gonna like spend like I'm not gonna buy one of those umbrella lamps that like filter the light and make my light. I'm not gonna buy. I'm not gonna do a lot of things that are necessary to get 100,000 subscribers, and I'm okay with that. Now, some people be like, dude, you need to do this, 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 and what's wrong with you? You need to do this, 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 and this, and they'll be like, and even maybe a loved one to be like, will push me. They'll be like, I really think you should get one. You can do this. You just need to like, spend a little bit more money. You can do this. You need to like buy it. But I think, if you love somebody, you need to be very honest with somebody, but you don't want to push, that person to do something they really just don't want to do. Is what I would say. Yeah, that's what I would say about that. You should be tough to children so that they understand the reality and complexity of the world. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think though it is important to explain. I don't think it's useful to like shelter. I remember I saw an interview with Johnny Depp, who is now like kind of a controversial figure because of that Amber Heard stuff. But I remember he was talking about his. This was way before that. He was talking about how, my goal in life is to like spoil my kids rotten. And he even further said like that's the responsibility of a parent. Like the parent, it's their responsibility to spoil and shelter and like block their exposure to like the horrors of life. Right, that's the responsibility of a parent. And then you want to make like an amusement park for the kid, like, and so that's his whole theory behind. But when you do that, the child just doesn't understand reality, right? So so Johnny Depp's kids, he can get away with that because he has so much money, right? So they have the luxury of not, they're. When they run into situations, they can just fall back on their trust funds and stuff. But so they can do that. But even then, it kind of hurts because now they, when they have to really do like constructive, if they want to like help the world in meaningful ways, they're going to be ill-equipped because they don't really understand the reality of the world. But I don't think you should like give kids a hard time. But I do think you should explain, like, yeah, the world is like, I do think like you should definitely teach a kid the concept of life is not fair. Like you definitely, like, I know a lot of people would disagree at that, but I would definitely Like, you gotta understand, like, life is not fair. Now, I'm gonna treat you with love, and I'm gonna like offer you, I'm gonna, treat you very nicely, and you're gonna get like, nice things from me. That's cool, but not everybody gonna treat you like that. And just because you do good in the world does not guarantee. A lot of people need to understand that. A lot of people don't. When that, because people get a lot surprised often, and they're like, "What's going on? Why am I? This is happening to me. I thought I did good." It's like, well, like, didn't anybody ever teach you, like, life is not fair, right? So in that sense, I think that's not constructive, you know. But but also like teach a kid when they're ready. Like, I wouldn't say that to like a 2-year-old. Well, maybe if they do the terrible two thing, be like, hey, okay, you gotta stop out, because I've been around kids like that. Where it's just like screaming and yelling, and at a certain point, you gotta be like, okay, you need to like settle down and like understand like the world doesn't revolve around you. You do need to have those kinds of talk, but you don't need to be smacking the kid or like treating the kid with disrespect, right? Or like putting the kid in their place. Like, no, you don't do all that stuff. You just like you explain it, because like I said before, it's respect. Love is, to love somebody, you gotta respect that person. So you got, I think a lot of respect is being honest. Like, being truthful and honest with somebody is like part of showing respect, because then it's like I acknowledge that you are able to understand the reality of, like, I respect you enough to be honest with you. I don't know, like, when you lie to somebody, like, to me that's like disrespect. That's like one of the signs of being disrespectful, to not being truthful to somebody. But then you could go further into that, like, well, what about like the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus? Well, I would say I believed in those things. My mama, and I loved it. But was she not showing me respect? Yeah, I think she wasn't. But I don't know. It's not so simple and straightforward. Because when I look back, it's like, yeah, you wasn't respecting my intelligence. At the same time, I'll tell you something. When I stopped believing in Santa Claus, that's when Christmas was like it lost all magic for me. Like, I'm also a Christian. Like, I understand like the true meaning of Christmas is the birth of Jesus Christ and all that stuff. But Santa Claus brought this whole like magical thing to it, and when that got taken away, I'm like, oh, I never got like super happy when Christmas morning came, and he kind of like basically blew it for me. So I don't know. I think like that kind of lying, but it depends. It depends on how you want to do it. I don't think that's that bad, because I'm just speaking for myself. I enjoyed that lie. That was a nice lie. Anyway. And then Jeremy Borno says, I love Final Fantasy 2. Yeah, Final Fantasy is a great series. I don't know. The gameplay is always good. The story is like, oh my god. Like, Final Fantasy 11 was the online one, which I played a lot, but then I stopped because I'm like, I'm wasting my life with this. And then Final Fantasy 12 came out, and I'm like, wow, this is like, the story is really generic. And then 13 came out, and I was like, wow, this storyline is just a mess. It is just like all over the place. It's nonsensical. That's when like Final Fantasy. The gameplay was very good though. And then 14 was another online one. I just skipped that one. I'm like, I'm not into the MMOs. And then 15 was like, again, you dropped the ball with the storyline. Like, I was like, this game barely has a story to it. It is, yeah, it kind of had like a lot of potential, but 15 I'm talking about. Now 16 is like, okay, I can get down with this. This is cool. I like this. And then Kang talks about Metal Gear. That's a cool game too. Yeah, Metal Gear is cool. Sometimes the cutscenes can get a little too long for me. Where it's like, wow, we're still talking here. Like, when can I actually play the game at a certain point? Sometimes it can get a little too long for me with Metal Gear, but It's cool. And then the Summoner is my favorite role. That's cool. Yeah, Final Fantasy X had their main character was the Summoner. And then Final Fantasy IV had Radia, I think her name is. She was a Summoner. Yeah, there's some famous Summoners. Aiko was fine. I forgot that little girl in Final Fantasy IX. She was a Summoner. Yeah, the Summoner role was very big in Final Fantasy. Do you believe love can be selfless? No, I don't think so. I think so. Yeah, so there's two opposites: selfishness and then selflessness. And then what's in the middle, that's love, right? If you're just like giving yourself all of yourself, but you're not receiving anything back, like that's not love, right? And I don't know. That's how I feel. Like some people, and I think that's one of the other problems with our society. We kind of like have this whole sacrificial idea of love. Like, you know, I'm gonna give my complete and whole self to you, and if you don't reciprocate, I'm still. And then that could become toxic too, right? Or it's like, hey, you know, I don't care what you say, I'm still gonna give myself to you, and I'm gonna like love you to the fullest. And if you don't reciprocate, I'm still gonna love you. And it's like that's getting a little toxic. But even and you know, the power dynamics kind of get out of whack. And love is like, you know, this mutual. Now, you know, at the same time, you know, some people have the ability to give more than the other person, like, you know, because of their situation. Like some people have more privilege than others, you know, so they can give more, which is, you know, that's fine, you know. So when you talk about like, well, it's got to be fair and balanced, well, you know, that's going to depend on the where the people are at in their life and what access they have and what ability they're at. So, you know, it's not, love can be like somebody giving more than the other person, or it can fluctuate. Like, okay, at a certain point you're giving more and I'm giving less, and I'm taking more and you're taking less, and then it flips. It's like, or maybe it doesn't, you know, but there's still like some sort of mutual situation going on. That's that both parties, that both sides feel like, yeah, I like this. I'm getting something out of this. It's making me feel good. I'm glad that I'm making you feel good. You know, but when it's like when the other side is not getting anything, that to me that's not love. So yeah. And then I think your friend would say probably not, and I'd agree. I don't even know what you're referring to because we've been talking about all types of things. I guess my friend who was talking about the love about being love is ultimately selfish. Yeah, I disagree with that, but you know, everybody has their opinion. But violence has some depth in it. It speaks to someone's survival and fight for justice. Yeah, I talked about this before. I think like when it comes to violence, I think like I was almost gonna say, but that's not true. I was gonna say it's kind of like when you're at a point where you have to be violent. It's like you no longer have any options. I guess that would be true, even for people who like choose to be violent. Is like, are they choosing to be violent because they're actually choosing to be violent, or they're just not aware that there are other things that they can do other than violence? Yeah, and I'm kind of like thinking the latter. Like when people become violent, it's like they might make the choice to be violent, but I don't know if they're fully aware that they can do things other than violence to solve the problem that they're in. So in that case, like, what kind of choice? Like now you're like going to this where I talk about the free will thing. Like, I think violence is an indicator that free will is being taken away. Like, because a lot of times we equate violence to free will. It's like, yeah, I'm fighting because I choose to fight. Like, yeah, but if you're like resorting to violence to like, then do you really have a choice at that point? It's kind of like, it's like self-defense, right? It's like the last resort. I don't know. I think like when people get violent, it's kind of like it's a point where like your will becomes is not free anymore, which is like that's not like a loving situation, right? It's like a situation is you're in a situation of desperation. Yeah. Let's see. The vibe. Only self-conscious individuals can love. What do you think? So we can make rule animals out of equation? I say animals love out of instinct. Well, other animals are self-conscious too. Like a dog has some consciousness. A cat does too. Birds are conscious. There's lots of animals there. I mean, a fish has some consciousness. I would say they're now. It's crazy. Like I always thought, like I always assumed like a crab or like a lobster has consciousness. I always thought, I thought like lobsters had consciousness. I think that's what, or crabs or whatever. Like, see, because now there's like this debate, which I was surprised that there's actually this debate because some people were saying. Some scientists really did believe, like, crabs are just like responding to stimulus. They actually aren't aware that what's happening. But then they actually started doing research on, how, you have the crabs that are you paint the crabs on the billboards and the promo ads and and they're red. And the reason why they're red is because they're being boiled, right? That's what makes them red. They're the boiledness, the seafood. And, when a crab is boiled, it's like responding, in pain, right? And for some reason, like, people were shocked. Like, there were some scientists that were... I was listening to NPR, and I was kind of confused by this. They're like, oh, like, the crab is actually, like, responding to being boiled alive. Like, we should reconsider, like, the sentience of... Like, I don't understand. Like, did you not think... Of course, it has some form of sentience. I was confused by that. Like, of course, like animals have, of course, like it doesn't want to feel pain. Like, I don't know. Yeah, so I think only self-conscious individuals. So I think most animals are self-conscious. I say most because they're probably, I was almost gonna say all, but there's probably exceptions. There's always exceptions, but they're probably very rare. So in that case, then most animals can love. I guess single-celled organisms are those animals? Maybe there's bacteria and there's viruses. Those are not in the animal tree of life, right? They're their own tree of life. Let's see. You should read Blood Meridian. Yeah, by McCarthy. I know, like that's the hype right now. I think that's his last or his book that he just recently came out. Same guy that wrote The Road, which I have not read that book, but I hear it's good. That's the type of book I like those kinds of books too. If it's anything like I like. Oh. Is that funny? I did not know we owned this. This is not my copy. Bam. I could talk about this. I did not know we owned this. This came out like recently, did it? Or am I confused? Oh, okay. This is old. Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. I was confused. I thought this was because this author recently came out with something, right? But it's not Blood Meridian. I should. Yeah, maybe I'll read this book. I had no idea we had this in the shelf. That's funny. But that's an old book. I didn't even know. That's how familiar I am with McCarthy. So yeah, I might do that. So it says, it philosophically explores violence, nature, conquest, and so many other wild and beautiful themes. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I should take a look. I know. I mean, a lot of novels philosophically explore violence, conquest. I mean, there's so many, right? But yeah, I hear he's one of the greats that does that. So maybe. We should children chess. That's love. I don't really get that one. I think independent people are hated because people use love as a way to control. While people manipulate, emotionally manipulate and abuse, and then they say that that's love, but that's not love, right? Like what they call narcissists will do that. They'll do the whole gaslighting and like emotional abuse and emotional manipulation, and then they'll say I love you, but they don't love. They're just like manipulating you because they have this warped sense of power and obsession with control of somebody, right? So I would not define that as love. I think dependent people are hated because we already read that. What do you think is meant by the phrase "God is love"? And that's why I started this definition this live stream with what is love, right? What do I think God? So the phrase "God is love." I guess that'll be my next stream because that is a very that's a like an hour or two long discussion. That should be my next. That's gonna be my next topic because we talked about what is God, we talked about free will, and now we talked about what is love. Right? God is love, free will exists, and love is a mutual aid situation. So now we come to the question of if there's so much suffering and evilness in the world, and if God is all benevolent and all powerful, then how is God love, right? And then the answer is, well, there's free will. But then you're like, well, is free will outside God's omnipotence? Or why would God allow people to choose to cause suffering or allow suffering? See that's a very enormous topic, which there are many answers for it, and I'm not, this isn't coming from my head, this is coming from all the theological stuff I've read and philosophy of religion now, and I would like to share that with you. But because I seriously believe in a lot of what these theologians and philosophers of religion have just talked about, and they seriously thought about this because it's an important question, right? But that so what do you think is meant by the phrase God is love? So that's the next topic for our live stream because that's going to be a complex discussion. So tune in next week or whenever next I do this. What do you think is the true nature of love? Well, the true nature of love is what we talked about with the mutual aid, the mutual benefit that love gives. But it's even more than that. If we include like divinity in this and the spirituality into this, then it becomes like even more complex. But I'll say for what we talked about so far, the nature of love is mutual. It's mutual. It's not one direction. And the nature of love is not selfish. The nature of love is not selfless. Right? The nature of love is a mutual beneficent. Let's see. A mutual beneficiary. A mutual beneficiary. That's a word. That of compassion and kindness, where the person who gives the compassion and kindness helps the person that they're giving it to, while at the same time enabling the person that they are helping to help the giver. Right. So there is an exchange, a mutual exchange of compassion and kindness that enables the giver and the taker to grow as individuals, right? To self-actualize, to be the best version of themselves, to go toward that. And that's what love is. That's the nature of love, right? And I guess I'll leave it there, but I will expand upon that the next live stream, because there's even more to it than that, right? Because then we're gonna include like free will. How does that play into it in the existence of God, right? How does that work? From my point earlier about modern dating, there is still hatred towards women who are independent and have standards. Men have to do more than just provide financially. Yep. And that's like that. Now I'm gonna get into my feminism, where like patriarchy is the leading cause of all problems on Earth, right? And I make no secret about this. Yeah, and that has nothing to do with modern dating. That's how it's always. We've been struggling with that for a long time before like modern dating, quote unquote, became a thing. This idea like man is this patriarch and this dominator who needs to provide for everything, and woman is this subordinate creature that serves the man and supports the man in his endeavor to provide for the family of 2.5 kids and a white picket fence and a house and a dog and a cat and maybe a fish in a fish bowl and all this other shit. Right, and so we're trapped in this paradigm, and if people don't fall into that paradigm, and many people don't, and in fact almost everybody doesn't, right, then that's a problem. And the reason why this paradigm exists is because we've built this capitalistic structure where people generate a lot of power through making sure the structure is in place, right? And so much financial gain and also like exploitation of people for power is rooted in this patriarchal structure. That's why it exists. And so like the problem is like I don't think that's a modern problem. I think that's a very old problem that we definitely need to dismantle and address. I think maybe modernism has like highlighted or like made even more aware like this falsehood, this reality that we've constructed is like this is not actually reality, right? And I think modernism has pushed, but then you still got these people who are invested in this idea of patriarchy, men and women, and they're just pushing it, and it's just like destroying ourselves because we're like trying to like put ourselves in this false reality that's just not who we are, right? So yeah. I don't think that's an issue of modern dating. I just think that's an issue of patriarchy. And then Kang says there's a thin line. And what do you mean by that? You say like, why is there so much evil and suffering in the world? Because there's a thin line between love and hate. I don't know about that. But that's what you're saying? Like, psst, because there's a thin line. But we'll talk further about that. What a coincidence. Yeah, tune in next time for more philosophical thought. But no, we'll get through a lot of these comments. In Christianity, that kind of love is considered the highest form of love. Yeah, right. Agape. That's probably not how you pronounce it. Do you mean like, the selfless? Love is not humanly possible since man cannot love selflessly. Right. Biblical, the Christianity has definitely pushed the selfless love to like the highest form of love, which I strongly disagree with because Christianity has become this institution, and it has become like antichrist. Like, Christianity as an institution does not follow like the teachings of Jesus Christ even remotely right nowadays. Like, you go to like a modern church, you're not gonna walk out of there like encouraged to follow what Jesus said to do, right? Which is, so, anything, I've like abandoned like the church in terms of like, an institution of like ethics or morality or anything like Jesus said, right? Because they do push that idea of selfless. They even like, glorify Christ, to like sacrificed himself on the cross to save our sins, and that's the highest form of life. And they completely like, ignore the fact that, it was the state that killed Jesus, and Jesus was an anarchist, and he was a social activist, and, he was about feeding poor people, and, he was about feeding homeless people, and he encouraged, immigration and refugees and such. Like, he did all these like woke, quote unquote woke things that we, the people, the high class people in church say, oh, we need to like devote, abandon woke ideology, even though like that's exactly what Jesus said we should be doing, right? So, I was gonna say, don't get me started, but we're already here. Like, yeah, the Christianity has like long forsaken Jesus Christ, right? And they, like, it's very difficult to find the meaning of love within church or like Christianity as an institution. You're not. It's going to be very difficult to find love in that institution. Sorry, I know that was a little mean and a little ranty, but it is. That's what I think. The question of suffering is deep, and I actually did a video about C.S. Lewis's, the guy that wrote the Chronicles of Narnia. He also was a theologian, and he wrote a book, The Problem with Pain, right? And that book is a lot about why suffering exists. So check that video out, but we'll talk more about that on the next live stream. The Problem of Evil, yeah, that's another one. So what's going on there? Yeah. For the record, I think if love is selfish in any way, it is not true love, and in that sense, love is merely an attachment. I don't know. I think you can have love that is not selfish, nor is it selfless, but it doesn't necessarily have to be an attachment. It could be like, it's just it's an act of mutual aid. Right, or it's a radical act of mutual aid, I would say. That's like a way to define what love is. Okay, Kang is dropping some names, which is why I think marriage, which are based on more than just love, lasts longer. Well, I mean, most people who get married get divorced. Like, I think in America, like over 50% of people who get married get divorced, right? And it's like higher in other countries. I think Japan has the highest rate of divorce. I think it's like close to 70% or something like that. Britain, I think, is higher too. It's like England is like 60 something. So is marriage like an indicator of love? No. right, because most people who get married get divorced, but then you have like other countries who probably would get divorced, but they have these cultural rules where that's just not a possibility, right? So I don't know about that. What do you think of emotionalism? I don't know what emotionalism is. And then MA says, Christ was woke, but he would have been canceled if he were alive. He was canceled when he was alive. He was definitely canceled, right? For sure. I mean, he was he was definitely canceled. But yeah, so what is it? I think it's Ecclesiastes. Like, there's nothing new. Everything. Well, There's nothing new that happens under the sun. I think that's a famous verse in the Bible. Everything that happens right now has already happened, right? Cancel culture is like not some new phenomenon. It's, you know, it's is a thing. You know, criticizing kindness and compassion, that's been you know, that's something that's been around since the biblical days. And then smiley face, reading the feed. Christ was woke, agreed. CNLD, I don't know what that acronym is. No. And then Drainal. Hello. Love is not strictly sexual. True. Do you think not Nietzsche writing would be different had he experienced requited love? Yeah. I don't think so. Maybe. Who knows? Yeah. Who knows? And we don't know if he. I mean, he might have experienced requital. I mean, he you know, maybe somebody was into him and he rejected the person. Or are you just saying like the person that he was pursuing didn't reciprocate? If that person like reciprocated, would his writings have been different? Probably, but who knows? Christ canceled and explain all this nonsense. Oh, okay, it means canceled. What do you mean? Explain what nonsense? Then explain all this nonsense. What nonsense? What you mean? What I was just talking about? With the church, the problems of the church, that nonsense. What do you think about passion? There's this annoying. Let me see. There's this annoying heart icon that's like blocking people's words. Is part of love. I can't even read because there's this. I guess it's this new feature. What do you think about passion? Is it part? I think it's. Is it part of love? Dang it! These icons are tripping. Is it part of love? Okay. Passion? What do you mean by passion? You mean like over the top emotion? Because yeah, it's part of love. Like, you know, being passionate for somebody, that's love. Yeah. But you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be passionate love. It could be like another kind of love too. Sure. Do you like movies? Yeah, I like movies. I tend to watch older movies. There's this movie rental place, old school, like Blockbuster. This is mom and pop. Well, I mean, I guess they're not really mom and pop. They're like they're independent. They call it the Black Lodge. They're a movie rental place. Because you know, Netflix, you can't rent a lot of old movies. You could just rent the movies, the modern movies. So I tend to like watch a lot of older films. I don't really go to I don't watch these new movies anymore because I'm like a boomer. I'm like I'm like a millennial boomer. I'm like, I'm not really into these Marvel superhero movies or these DC like modern movies. I can't really get into them anymore. Or these new Disney remakes and all this stuff. But I like the older stuff. I believe Christ was effective if the concept of Christianity is immorality of the poor. Well, I mean, if you're poor, you're shamed, right? In today's society, if you're poor, you're like blamed for being poor, right? You're like, people will say, you know, our society says, oh, you're not responsible. You made like bad mistakes in life. That's why you're poor, right? And resources are just blocked by you. When, you know, there's so many poor or people who can't like afford like basic resources now. And like, most people's position is like, well, I guess they just made the wrong decision, which is like, that's not what Christ said, right? so I mean, a morality of the poor, like, I don't see the church. The church doesn't have. I mean, the churches I went to had no morality of the poor. Like, the churches I went to is like, well, help them if you can, but definitely like put some money in our offering plates. Be sure you do that, right? Before you help the poor, make sure you put the money in our offering plate. Like, would Jesus say? No. Jesus would cancel church. Jesus would be like, you know what? There's no church service today. What we're going to do is we're going to go to where the poor people are, and we're going to serve food. That's what that's church service for today, right? But I mean, that's what Christ, but Christ, he is missionary. When he held church, he held it like in the desert, right? He held it like out on the mound, right? Outside with the people. He didn't like do sermons inside these like golden ivory like buildings with these beautiful stained glass windows and people dressed in their Sunday's best. I don't know. So like, was Christ effective? Well, I guess he influenced me, so I guess he's effective for me. But there's so many people who call themselves Christian who are like, that Christ is not effective for them because they're not listening to anything he's saying, particularly not the poor. They don't give a damn about the poor, even though they go to church. But I don't know. That's me ranting again. Your VHS tape. I'll be right back. VHS tapes. See, what I'm saying? Like, that's me. I like my movies. I like my VHS tapes. Appreciate this live. Thanks. Yeah, we're just hanging out. Have you seen Terrence Malick? No. Do you believe film can embrace philosophy? Yeah, absolutely. There's a film I like. It's called Waking Life. It's by Richard Linklater, I think the director's name is. He's a great director. And that's a philosophical movie that I love. I like a lot of philosophical films. Yeah, I definitely think that film can embrace philosophy. I had a friend who was dyslexic, but he was also cross-eyed, so everything came out okay. Well, I'm glad it worked out for your friend. Hello from Puerto Rico. Hello, Suwada. Hello. Did Kierkegaard die young? Did he? I don't know. Usually when I have my... Let's find out. Usually these books have a biography. Let me see, right, about the author. Let's see. Let me see if I can find it really fast. This is Soren Kierkegaard's Either Or. I did a video on this book. Let's see. He provoked in 1946. So he was born in 1813 and he died 1855. So that is what, 42? Yeah, he died at age 42. So that's pretty young. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Let me put it back. That's unfortunate. Do you think, what do you think of dual aspect monism in respect to physics? I don't know. Oops. dual aspect monism. I don't even know what that is. Sorry. I know what physics is, but I don't know what dual aspect monism is. Sorry. Let me fix that. I think Kang is inferring a link between Nietzschean views on the master-slave morality and Christianity. That's still messed up. Where Christ might train us to be meek while Nietzsche's Übermensch preaches power. Check out Nietzsche's Antichrist. I wonder if I could pull that off. Is it right here? That would have been so cool if I could. Bam! But I think it's on my other shelf. It doesn't matter. I was just trying to be cool and see if I could pull it off. I did a video on Nietzsche's Antichrist. That's a great book. That's a great book because he basically argues is like, and Nietzsche's an atheist, by the way. But he's like, all Christians are either all Christians are like Antichrist, or like Jesus was an Antichrist, because what the churches are preaching is not what Jesus taught. So either way you go, like one of like, it's called the Antichrist, right? And he's right. And it's just too bad like an atheist is like calling them out, but it's true. Have you read nope, I have not read Wittgenstein or Wittgenstein. Sorry, I know that's a popular philosopher. I've seen that name dropped many times. But it's funny, you read something, you never like say it out loud, then you realize like, I've never said that word out loud before. I've seen it all the time. I think to love people is to love the poor, but as mankind is incapable of loving selflessly, love is lost on Nietzschean nihilistic types. Yeah, I just fundamentally disagree. Like, I don't think love is selfless. I think to love is to include the self as part of a benefactor. Now you might be making sacrifices, like you might like, okay, I'm gonna skip my meal today because I need to drive this person to, or whatever. But in the long run, you're like, yeah, but I'm gonna skip this meal, but I'm gonna I'm gonna help this person out who needs me, and I want to be there for that, because you want to be there for that person. Why do you want to be there for that? Because ultimately that's enriching your life. Relationships are what enrich our life. It's not ultimately. It's not like the materials that we have, right? Even though you need materials to survive too, right? But what really materials is what just what helps us survive, right? But what gives us meaning in life, purpose, what gives us fulfillment, those are the relationships that we have with each other, right? And how do you form relationship? Through love, right? The more meaningful your relationship is, the more love you're putting into that relationship, right? So there again, it's always this it's not just I'm not ignoring myself, because love is a relationship building process. So a relationship is at least two people, or sometimes it's yourself. It's like a loop, right? But it's a kind of it's a mutual situation, mutual action. Okay, what's going on?
My name is Kang too. Ha ha ha. Cool. Right on, doing. Okay. Cool. Which I think is higher love. If language is the limit of our world, not only our thought, then isn't love a set of actions ultimately? If you believe language is the limit of our world, which I don't know about that. But I will say love, I do think love is ultimately action. It's not like concepts or like, ideas or theories like an action. So that's true. And then relationships are essential. We need to be connected deeply with others. This is what love is. Right. And so in that way, I feel like the connection, because love is a kind of connection, there can't be like a selfless type of love, because with that, selfless would imply like no connection. It's just you just outputting to somebody and they're not connecting back to you. Right. It's like a one-way connection, which I don't know if that's even a thing. I guess in like theoretical mathematics. I don't know. Graph theory. The love of material goods without the acknowledgement of the people who made this is a side effect. I'm not liking this new. Can I make this go away? This icon. I can't even read your damn. There's this heart icon that's just blocking your. Oh my gosh. Now I'm completely blocked. Okay. Oh my. I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. The love of material goods without the acknowledgement of the people who made them is a side effect of capitalism. Right. God's love is selfless. We can't return it. We can't return it equally. That's what I was saying. Like, balance. You kind of have to throw balance out the window, but we can return it. It's just not going to be like, God is definitely giving more than we can give back, right? The idea, but we can give back, right? In fact, that's what God wants. God wants a relationship. God wants a return, right? That's the whole. So love is a relationship, right? So it doesn't have to necessarily be like an equal giving and taking, right? The scales don't have to match, but there needs to be like some sort of return that makes some sort of like giving back, right? That provides like a kind of mutual like enrichment, right? Yeah. So that's the thing. I believe like that's what God wants. God wants to form a personal relationship with you, right? And because He wants that kind of reciprocal relationship. Or if we're talking about Jesus, is He? If you're talking about the Holy Trinity, is they? However you want to say it. True, we can't return it equally. Yeah. But the key is we still can return it. So therefore, there's still like, even when we talk about the context of God, there is no selfless, right? There's no selfless, because that return is a benefit to God, right? This is a kind of like it's a what is it? This is what God wants, and once you reciprocate God's love, God is getting what God wants, right? So there's a mutual situation going on even there.
If God is love, it is not. Oh damn! It is not an inverse square law. Okay, I was able to. I'm gonna file a complaint with YouTube and get rid of this damn hard icon. But what was somebody was saying? Let's see. Oh yeah, the last thing I wanted to do was look up this kind of love. What is I'm sorry. Yeah, it's been a long time since I read. I have it on the shelf. Symposium. I'm pretty sure that's the one where Plato talks about the different kinds of love. Let me see. It might not be. I might be. Oh, it's like it's platonic love. Oh, it's platonic love. Okay, that's what this. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So you're saying plutonic love is the highest kind of love. Okay, get rid of that mini. Where was that? Plutonic love is the highest kind of love. Oh, you know, I think there are different kinds of love, but I think they're all equally important. Or I don't know if any love is higher. Like friendship love is, I don't know. I see that just as important as romantic love, sexual love, all the various kinds of love. My love with the PlayStation 5, even that's a meaningful kind of love. Because, you know, it gives me joy because I play. But also, you know, it's kind of cool, like looking at the art and enjoying the music and the storyline. You know, it's life enriching too. Love is equality. Okay. Love is equality. I don't know if that's. I mean, equality is cool, but like I was saying, like, you know, it's not always like an equal exchange of benefit, but it's fine because as long as each party is getting what they want, that's what's important. Or each party is enriching themselves. It might not be equal either, but. You know, everybody's getting what they want, so I don't know. Love equality, I'm not sure. Do you think monogamy or polyamory are natural? Sure. You know, some people like to be in monogamous relationships, and some people like to be in polyamorous relationships. You know, like you know, like. I was saying before, the whole patriarchy framework has trapped us in all these boxes where we think like everybody and their mama wants to be in a monogamous relationship, and if you're not in a monogamous sexual romantic relationship, you have a problem, right? There's something wrong with you. You're not normal. But I mean that's a false reality, right? Some people don't want to be in a monogamous or a polyamorous relationship. They just want to be in people who identify as asexual, right? And that's cool too, right? But you know, it's only these things are natural depending on who you are. They're natural to some people. They're unnatural to others. Can a superior person love an inferior person? Well, how do you define superior and inferior? All right, we're going the distance here in terms of time. I'll just keep going until. Oh, maybe you're saying like superior or inferior. Like, well, God is superior, and you know, a human being is inferior to God. So yeah, I would, if you're looking at it from that perspective, sure, yeah, sure. That's a superior person can love an inferior, like an omnipotent being can love a being that has limited power. Sure, I think so. Can a superior person love inferior person? Oh, I already read that. Hold on, Neil. It's worthwhile investigating the history of marriage and monogamy. Well, let me see. Damn it. Okay, I can't do it. I thought, because I was able to do that a few times, I thought I could just keep doing this. Oh, it's over here. Let me get it right quick. Because I made a video about that. I made several videos about that, actually. Let me see if I could find the videos. Oh, here. Okay, here we go. See, this is why it's good to have a... So check out my videos. This is one, The Creation of Patriarchy by Gerda Lerner. I made a video about this book, and it goes into depth about the history of marriage and monogamy. So if you want a worthwhile investigation on that, check out this book, and also look at my video about it, because it does that. Now, if you want to know more about polyamory, I made a video about this book, The Ethical Slut. It's a deep examination of polyamory. It delves into philosophy about polyamory too. So, check out here you go, your deep investigation on both monogamy, marriage, and polyamory. Video on both of those. Okay, selling a daughter off to marry is wrong. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Now, some people have told me, well, this just because you didn't raise, some cultures, that's what they do, and you need to respect somebody's culture. I don't know about that. I don't think so. I think that's wrong. If, consent is huge. If somebody's just like being pushed on somebody because it's some sort of like business arrangement, I don't know about that. Then I would question the culture. I'd really question the culture. I think that culture is problematic, and I think that culture needs to re-examine its ethics and morality. Now, I'm not saying, I live here in the United States of America. American culture is deeply problematic and filled with all types. So we definitely need to examine our culture. So, let's not have the pot calling the kettle black here. But yeah, I feel like I agree with that. I haven't read that book, but it's on my wish list. Okay, well, whenever you're ready, there's your deep investigation on marriage and monogamy. Yep. So I will put these back. Oh, I'll just leave them here. And yeah, we've been going for over 2 hours now, which is great. That's awesome. But if there, I will close if there's no other comments or questions. But yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody for participating and having a nice hangout conversation about philosophy. I need to look. What was it? God. What is meant by God is love. Okay, yeah, that's going to be our next topic. So if you can join me, I'm not sure if because the next, yeah, I think I could do it. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Can I do it next week? Yeah, I think I can. I was just thinking about that. I'm thinking about my schedule. Yeah, okay. And so goodbye. I'll see you later. Thanks for tuning in, and then tune in next time for more philosophical thought.